All right, everybody, welcome to IoT Coffee Talk. We don't have an electric guitar at the moment, so, I guess Dimitri and I could do air guitar. I'm not sure. But it's another big week, as you all well know, October is, we're right back in the middle of conference season. We kind of left off conference season in, April, May, June, and took a break in the summer. Now we're back and everybody's traveling all over the place. But I think very topical, and I know Dimitri has a lot to talk about this today, is we had the Oracle event, formerly Oracle World, then it became Oracle Cloud World, and it actually even started, this year's even started to be Oracle Cloud World, and then halfway through, they changed the marketing people, obviously got to them and changed it to Oracle AI World. So, even the biggest companies in the world have to keep pivoting, right? AI got to be cooler than cloud, I guess. So, yeah, that was a big thing. And, you had a lot of talk about their Oracle Cloud Infrastructure, OCI, and what's going on with them. But they did release an update to their database. I think it's Oracle 26 AI.
26.
Where they have AI in it. And I know most of our audience here, you've been database people probably since the 80s or 90s. You learned at the feet of Mr. Cod. And, I don't know. What database did you get started with, Dimitri? Do you remember what your first database was?
Yeah, well, yeah.
Go ahead. Don't be embarrassed.
No, it's not embarrassing. It was actually pre-SQL, and there was actually two generations that I started. I started with sequential files on the mainframe system using assembly language. So that was kind of the first. Actually, I was not really a master at that, but a friend of mine, I developed, mostly him actually. I have to give him his credit, guys, Bernard. And he built, with a little bit of my help, we had a comics books library in the engineer school. Yeah, well, cool. Engineer schools in France have tons of money, so this is the kind of thing we buy comics books. So we did a management system that actually ran on the Minitel. So you could connect to the mainframe from the Minitel, and you could actually manage the because we were actually renting those comics book to the students of the school. So that was a sequence base. But then I started working for a small startup, and it was a PIC system. So I spent a lot of time on the PIC system, which was a kind of a pre-relational with some relational concept later on.
Yeah.
And we actually built the whole small business in France out of those PIC systems, because I think I might have mentioned that on the show, but we used to, the French, well, I don't want to get political, but if you look at what we're doing in the US right now, it looks like what the French were doing in the 70s and 80s, where if you were a public company, like, a ministry or an agency, you had to buy your computing software and hardware from a French company.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, they had no choice. You couldn't buy any. There was some exception for IBM, obviously, because there was actually not so much, because this is why we actually had IBM clones in France.
Oh.
And, there was a big company in aviation called Intertechnique. There was kind of a Lockheed Martin or components type of stuff. And the Sounds founder was a young guy, and he was interested in computing, so he created IN2, Intertechnique 2, and he got a license from Mr. Richard Pick, the PIC Systems in the US, and he actually, the company were building hardware and the software that goes with it. So there was PIC system boxes being sold in France, and they were actually pretty competitive. So they were everywhere in the governments and type of places. And in the mid-80s, the constraint of being forced to use only French hardware was starting to be lifted, and there was a US company that had a kind of emulation of the PIC system on Unix, and actually resell the thing. So, and we did that for a few years, and then we started to see this guy Larry Ellison coming up with Oracle. So my first relational database was actually Oracle.
Yeah.
So, a long answer to a short question makes me feel my gray hair is totally deserved.
We've been around for sure. I always found it interesting, how Oracle was able to jump out ahead of IBM because it seemed like a lot of the brain power at the time, way back then, around the relational theory was with them, and yet Larry put together something, and Oracle quickly took the lead.
Yeah, I think you're definitely right, because the research paper from SQL, if I remember well, were actually initially created by IBM.
Yeah.
But I think that that Ellison definitely, he had the vision that the standard will, had the potential to actually become a standard.
Yeah.
But also, I think the big difference is that, because so we worked with Oracle, and later on the company actually got acquired by Sybase that I work for.
Oh yeah.
I think and even Informix was Informix, I think at that time, was one of the contender as well.
I remember Informix, yeah.
But Oracle won because their sales engine and strategy was extremely effective. They were and you have to give credit to Ellison on that. He was Concur. There was that basically, and I remember it's very interesting because we were doing services around Oracle, and when they started growing extremely fast, there was all this long tail of Oracle customers that were actually pretty pissed because Oracle had closed the deal, put the software, and then you on your own to implement it.
Oh.
And now Oracle had services for tuning of the database, but I mean we were doing the same. But literally, I remember going to accounts where Oracle would say, "Oh, we're sending you the consultant," which would probably charge like $600 an hour.
Right.
And the guy would basically come to the meeting, sit, and he had this little book that was Oracle Press that was how to tune the database, and he was basically flipping the book and reading the book.
Oh my God, that's embarrassing.
And I had read the book and I knew it by heart. I was like, "Are you paying this dude to read the thing and read on the fly?"
Oh my God.
And everybody was happy because they had committed $1 million in Oracle database and they had to make it work now.
Wow.
So, but again, their selling strategy was so aggressive. So it was actually the combination of the vision that SQL will impose itself, because it was actually, and I keep on saying that it's funny, you probably seen some of my early article on digital twins, Rob, where actually I made the parallel between SQL and digital twins. Because what people don't realize that what was very powerful in SQL was not just the query language, but the whole construct had the DDL, the data description language, which was, what is the metadata to create, design, and implement the schema. And then you had the query language. And what we were actually doing, you were doing it better at Hitachi, but what we were doing at G Digital is, we had this vision of, how to talk to the digital twin. So it was kind of the API interface.
Right.
Nobody had no vision in terms of designing it.
Okay.
So Microsoft came in with DTML with all its limitation later on. But my pitch inside G was, hey, this is what we need to define that, take the same analogy. If we give people the tool to design the digital twins, the data structures or the construct, now object-oriented, because it's not just data, it's also all the methods, and then gives them a query language, then you have the potential for a standard. And if a standard is adopted, look what happened with SQL. One big vendor will win, there will be competition, and it will be fun. But it never materialized.
That's interesting. When you think about it, all the programming languages, or whatever you want to call them in the world, and new ones come along and old ones die. But it does seem the one constant throughout time has been SQL. New things come and go, but we all still have to know SQL to talk to the databases. And if you had to find a language that more people knew broadly, it might be SQL.
It probably is, because to actually Larry Ellison point in his keynote, I mean, we probably have a good 20s. I mean, the NoSQL thing started to emerge with the Facebook. So I would say 2007, 2010. So we probably have a good 30 years where all business data will end up in a relational database.
Yeah. But it's funny. You talk about Facebook. Actually, when Mark Zuckerberg first built it, he was like a lot of developers. Remember the whole LAMP stack? And so he built it on PHP, and he used MySQL because it was you're a student in school and whatever, and then that's how Facebook started. I remember how, and you're right, because then all of a sudden at some point we started getting all these NoSQL databases, and young kids said they're better, even though I remind them that almost all the data on the planet is in relational databases and mainframes and other things, and doing billions of transactions per day. But Facebook actually did a lot of work to make MySQL better with their engineering, and then they also did something to PHP. There was remember it was called Project Hip Hop, and it was basically okay. A lot of people knew PHP, but it wasn't like some super performant language for web. And they did a Project Hip Hop that would dynamically compile that into C code to get better performance. Databases, when I think of a non-relational database that I worked with back a long time ago, I remember having to work with a AS400, and the notion of having to, this is going to sound strange, chain to files. Does that even make any sense? It might have been a hierarchical database, and it was just a bizarre way to get to data. And someone was saying, well, I think it's technically a DB2 400, but you chain to files. And I remember I was like the only, I'm on this project. It was some manufacturing company, and there were a bunch of guys who were RPG programmers. Do you remember RPG? So they used RPG 400, and I'm sitting there with Visual Basic 5 and ODBC drivers to try to talk to this thing.
Yeah, not totally surprised. Actually, two things on what you said, and I think even when Facebook actually switch, at least for their main feed, to a more NoSQL because of scalability issues, they kept. I don't know if it's still the case, but they kept MySQL for analytics for a long time, which is actually the point. The problem is we still have, and I think it's still the reality. And there was also Lotus Notes at that time where you had actually this kind of battle between structured and unstructured data.
Yeah.
So structured data makes sense for everything that is transactional, and I would say business transaction, because it is an abstraction layers that make it easy by computers to process it.
Yeah.
So much. But then you have the reality of, as you said, text files and paragraphs and language and post feeds, which will not fit in well in a SQL.
Right.
So, and now we have the tech that is actually like AI and all this GenAI, which is very tweak toward text, human text.
Yeah.
But it doesn't work. And that's actually one of the big challenges with the Ellison thing is how we can retransform that data into something that GenAI can work very well, because it's only recently, even though that, and I haven't checked that, but I've seen an announcement recently with Anthropic and Claude that those GenAI can finally work well with spreadsheets, which is a kind of a first level of relational. I mean, at least
it is.
Tables.
I tell people all the time, I was like, think of your Excel spreadsheet and that workbook. That's your table. You may have had multiple workbooks in a spreadsheet, and then those are multiple tables. You may not have a relationship, because you're right. When you're taking a beginner who doesn't understand relational theory and all that.
Now, where I think Oracle and Ellison, especially in this speech, which I only really watched the beginning, the kind of the first 2/3 in details, but because solving the problem, and then this is what I wrote in my article was mentioning, because the first level, which is taking one table and transforming, this list of transaction into text, is not complicated. That can be done.
Right.
Problem is the relational. So if you have two sheets in the spreadsheet and there is a foreign key, primary key between the two, this is where, how do you transform that back into a text that can be used by GenAI? This is where it gets very complicated.
Absolutely.
So then there is another set of technologies apparently called schema embedding. And this was my main point, which is this is where I start laughing like hell, because designing good schemas, I try to sell worldwide. It did kind of work in France and in Germany, but in the UK and in the US, I try to sell design tool so that people could create and maintain the database schema effectively and correctly.
Yeah,
never worked.
But I love those tools. Irwin was one of all the interrelations.
Irwin was the company I work for. We were created. The product was called Power Designer, and Irwin was our main competitors. We reached position 2 in the US. We never reached position 1. But this isn't. This is, I believe, still relevant even to IoT, but this is the hilarious part. I'll tell you the whole story, and it's going to be just 3 minutes. So our view, because in France there was actually a methodology called Meurice. You may have heard of it. Meurice methodology, where you actually start with a conceptual model. When you want to build a system that has data, you start with what's called a conceptual model. We say, oh, I have a customer, I have an order. A customer places an order. These are all the attributes in the order. An order as a core, element with shipping and ordering. Then there are order lines. So you design your concepts independently of the database. And then you push a button and you say, oh, I want to use relational database Oracle, or I want to use this or that. And then it generates the physical implementation with the primary key, secondary key, references, joins, all this kind of stuff. And then you implement. So we started selling that. We are very successful in France because we think that, oh, you think first and you blah, blah, and you implement.
Yeah.
Then we went to the US and Erwin was already there. And the US said, you know what? I already have an Oracle database that I designed in a hurry because I wanted to ship my product. Can you scan it and give me a schema of your things? Because I don't really care about this conceptual model. I want to understand how it is right now. So that anecdote actually explained the whole process. So people were much more focused on creating tables and kind of putting references and doing it a bit the messy way. And then they wanted a way to re-engineer that and make it better. The problem is most of the time they would not re-engineering and make it better. So my point is, even if you look at the schema in the vast majority of database systems, they have been created initially not very well. They have been patched many, many times over years. So you have redundancy, you have violation of the code models, you have circular references. So it's a gigantic mess. So good luck taking those schemas and putting them into some AI and expect some great result. Good luck.
Good luck.
Good.
Remember when we used to be obsessed with things like second, third, fourth normal form in databases?
Okay.
Yeah.
So the approach to start from and actually the interesting thing with this conceptual model, and actually this is the entity relationship methodology, the equivalent Meurice and the entity relationship. I don't remember who created that methodology, but the concepts are the same. And the beauty about that is that at the conceptual level, it's independent from the implementation. So you can use sequential file, you can use an object database. It's just when you go from this, oh, I have all the concepts, all the attributes, all the connections between the data. Now let's implement in a relational model, in sequential file, in object file. You have actually different rules.
Yeah.
So it's very powerful, but it requires discipline, which is a violation of the MVP concept.
Absolutely. Those crazy MVP people just throwing shit at the wall and hope it sticks and works.
Now it's always a balance because we actually witnessed, in France and to some extent Germany and some European countries where people would spend like months in the conceptual model.
Right.
So and that's why the tool was effective, because the tool allows you to do a first conceptual model, get your implementation, and then iterate with the different.
Yeah, no, you're right.
Hey, what's up?
Yeah.
Hey, we're talking about relational databases and AI, and we're kind of going through our discussion of the Oracle event and Larry Ellison's talk, and Dimitri had a lot to say about it, as you can imagine. And,
really?
Yeah.
Were you there? Unlike
No,
Rob?
I saw Rob post this.
I was there, but
I know.
I guess they had it online or on YouTube or something.
Yeah, it was on YouTube. So I saw Rob post and I said, hang on a second. And he just explained the whole idea that Leonard, of how fundamentally relational databases were created because the technology at the time, the computing technology wouldn't allow you to process, human things like orders and customers. So we create this abstraction. And now that computers understand human text with GenAI, we're going to have to retransform back to the origin to be able to use it. So I immediately thought, well, relational databases suck for GenAI. So how do you solve that problem? And
you don't.
He actually didn't give any.
You do. I have something. It was invented a long time ago.
Good. Let's read that.
It's like the friggin' coolest name. It's the coolest data type ever. It's called a friggin' blob.
Yeah, but the problem.
Make everything a blob.
Yeah, but
make everything a friggin' blob.
No, but the problem is that creating a blob from a set of structured SQL data is complicated. Because it was complicated to deblob it.
But the blob, the purpose of the blob was not to It's just a data type. You know, it was interesting because even at that time, I mean, think about it. The relational database created the first richest man in the world coming out of Silicon Valley, and that was Larry Ellison. People, remember that?
Yeah.
He was the richest man in the world for a long time.
Yeah,
You know?
that's true.
And,
Yeah.
in this case, we were wondering why didn't IBM get the early lead? Because all the research came out of IBM. But when we think about it, we talk about entrepreneurs and startups and here on the show often. And sometimes someone else may have the idea, but execution matters. And Ellison executed in a way that IBM didn't at the time. And he got the early lead.
It's actually worse than that because DB2 came much, much later. The pure research of the SQL construct that we explained with Rob a second ago with the data description language and the query language was pure research work. IBM just didn't believe in it initially. They didn't implement anything. They started implementing much later when Oracle.
Yeah, but you got to remember what Larry did. He applied it and created the application layer.
That was
Oracle app.
This is a myth. It was much later. In the beginning, it was it's much, much later. It was in the mid to late 90s. In the original, just a basic technology. What Larry did, which we discussed with Rob, is he had an extremely aggressive selling strategy where he was really basically conquering, going to an account, selling, going away, don't providing any support, selling expensive consultant to help people figure it out. But he was doing deals. So the go-to market was extremely strong. But to your point, in the mid-90s, when people started to realize, I paid all those $1 million in databases and I don't know what to use because it's a technology, he realized that the switch to applications to pull or to maintain the platform was extremely important. So that was phase 2. He was the first one to understand the concept that the applications pull, or in his case, keep the platform.
Mm.
Yeah.
My first version of Oracle that I ever worked with, I think it was in 94. I think it was Oracle 7 was the first time I ever played with it.
Yeah, I still just thought it was 4, so it was much earlier.
Prior to that, I was...
You're old.
Prior to that, luckily I'm only 25. Can't you tell?
Yeah.
Well, if you look at Larry Ellison, sorry to make a point here during this keynote, he looks like a 120 years old guy that trying to look like 60.
He's had some work done.
Yeah.
Multiple times.
Some major work.
Yeah, because he's I think 81 or 82 years old.
Yeah.
So the fact that he's still getting up there. But now here's the thing: we were wondering what was going on because they delayed his keynote by an hour. Everybody's lined up to go in, and then all of a sudden they're like, "Oh, he's not going to come on until 2:30 instead of 1:30." And then people started going, well, what's going on? Did he have a heart attack? Or is he,
waiting for the drug to kick in.
Ready for the drug to kick in so he can be,
No.
And then there's the giant room. But then when you look at where he was sitting, it looked like they created another stage somewhere else and they were kind of projecting it. It looked like he wasn't really on the stage in the big room. It looked like they recreated what looked like the stage and then filmed it onto it. I don't know. It looked kind of weird, like it was somewhere else and not in the actual room. But you're right. They may have had to wait for the drugs to kick in.
Or maybe it's his digital twin, and
it could have been his twin. I noticed like sometimes there was a flicker. And it was like the Matrix or Tupac or Michael Jackson on stage as an avatar.
You see a black cat?
Yeah, exactly. So for me, first was DBAs, then Paradox. Do you remember Paradox?
Yeah, Paradox was there.
Yeah,
that was kind of it was kind of halfway to SQL or three-quarters.
Yeah, I did Paradox. I did Fox Pro.
No, Fox Pro too.
And then
DB2.
I didn't do DB2 until a little later. I did do, like I kind of mentioned the chain. I did DB2 400. I did Access, and then Access was the gateway drug to SQL Server. There you go.
There was nothing in common. SQL Server is something that Microsoft stole from Sybase. I remember I was at Sybase at the time.
Yeah, that's right.
Sybase was awesome.
I remember doing Sybase. Yeah.
Transact SQL, right?
Yeah, T-SQL. That's right. And,
Yeah, well, it was the-
and Oracle was PL SQL, right?
Yeah, much later.
No, it was PL SQL was
PLSQL.
programming
Yeah.
part of it, but yeah.
The Transact SQL had programming capabilities from the very
Right.
beginning.
That's right.
And you remember what was the big war at that time? The big technology war at that time between Oracle and Sybase?
Triggers.
Oh, no, Triggers was a piece of shit technology that Oracle put in SQL forms. Yeah, it was awful. But I mean,
it was like MCP of today, right?
no, there was kind of procedure call you had in their user interface. That was pre-Visual Basic. I mean, the company I work for, we were doing services on that. Every single customer we talked to hated the triggers in PLSQL.
So what was the war?
No, we were always told not to use them.
The war was page level locking versus row level locking.
Oh.
Yeah, because Sybase was doing page level locking because it was much faster at the time, and Oracle was doing row level locking, which means that everything was going through a transaction consistency issue. And Oracle up to 7 actually had serious scalability issue because of that. But obviously, if you only use page level locking, you have to be much more conscious of the size of your transaction and how you make them work.
Absolutely. But doing row level locking was considered a superior, better way to do it. But to your point, it could hurt scalability.
It did at the time because technology was limited, but it was actually the right direction. But the thing is, the main reason why I believe Oracle won the war against Sybase is because Sybase was very tied into a specific industry and a specific partnership. It was really financial institution, Wall Street transaction, Sybase. And that was unbeatable. And Sybase was still 10 years ago, and it's probably still the case. 70% of Wall Street was still running on Sybase.
Yeah, but that was about the time that ERP was really taking off, right?
That was way
I remember.
That was way before.
Like when it was getting really ridiculous.
Yeah, that's true. The battle was already partially lost by Sybase.
They were not part of that. They were not part of that party. I mean, when you think about what the accounting firms were doing, the pre-SI guys were doing at the time, they were. I mean, because I lived it, I saw it, right, and I barely saw Sybase at the party. At all. It was all Oracle, and at the app level, it was SAP.
Well, we talked about that before you joined. We talked about that before you joined, Leonard, in the sense that I was saying that the two things that Larry Ellison did extremely well. The first one is the vision that SQL had the potential to become a standard. And the second one, he understood the concept of the application pulling the platform.
Yeah. But you know what? Your earlier statement that, our relational databases suck for GenAI. I was like, well, who gives a shit? Because GenAI is pretty shitty for a lot of other stuff. So, here's the thing that I'm increasingly realizing as I study this whole idea of AI factory. So I was at OCP, right? This stuff, the old stuff is not going to go away. This brownfield, this massive brownfield, you're going to have to deal with it. And you're going to also have to deal with the fact that some of the old way of doing stuff is way more efficient than dumping that crap into a large language model. And then, here's the other funny thing. I was listening in on the Dreamforce thing. The most hilarious thing that they introduced into Agentforce is this thing called agent scripts. Did you see that? I posted about it. This is like literally working your way all the way backwards. And basically what it's the idea is that you can embed code into your agent configuration. It's like, well, then what the hell is the use of the agent itself? Right? When you're going to be coding X percentage of what it's supposed to do. So not only are you isolating the large language model into sort of this agentic shell within the agent itself, you're making it programmatic. And then when you start to see all the configuration you have to do to make this thing do consistently and with quality what you want it to do, it's a shit ton of work. I'm sitting there looking at this thing going, okay, if I was an administrator, how difficult would this be to manage, right? All these people going off, creating all these rogue agents. And then you as a user, how much do you have to learn to actually make these things do what you want to do at scale, right?
But
It's nothing close to this fire and forget notion. This what do you call it? This no code idea that was wrapped around agentic AI just 6 months ago.
But I think
you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, but I haven't looked at details of that. I will, but what pops to mind is GenAI, as we were saying earlier, is very effective when you work on your human text and social text. Now, when you start getting into the world of data, whether it's databases, Oracle, and Salesforce, it is in a relational data model. So you have to transform back this data in something that the GenAI will understand. And I suspect that this cryptic thing is exactly that. It's saying, go talk to the data, bring it codes to get it into a package form that you can send it to a GenAI so you can understand it. I suspect to solve that problem, which is the hardest problem that, Ellison spoke for, an hour and a half, and he was like a good 45 minutes on this. He didn't explain at all how this is going to work. So, but anyway,
yeah. I mean, what was it? 25, almost 30 years ago. Oh, Jesus Christ. Yeah. He was saying, we have a multi-language database. And so if somebody creates an invoice over here in Japan and, somebody in the US wants to look it up, well, guess what? We solved that problem. No, you didn't.
Well, that was application level. That was
25 years ago. Yeah. So, you got to double click on all this stuff. And some of all this stuff is nice thinking.
Yeah.
I just got off a briefing call and, I was just pitched a bunch of, marketing hoopla. And you double click on a couple of things. There's like nothing there. I mean, it's just you can't. You know what? Somebody told me at the conference, if you want to learn something, don't talk to management.
Boom.
If you want to know what's going on, don't talk to management.
Except if you want to learn about how to make money. But anyway, by the way,
maybe not even that.
I think that I think there was to re-anchor back into the theme of our series here, there was a second part which I watched much more quickly, so you might have more insight than I, Rob. But there was a whole stuff about IoT visionary subject that Larry Ellison covered, which I actually found, again, he didn't give any practical exact example, but there was a lot. So the focus, I was actually pleasantly surprised, but everything related to health, everything related to agriculture, and so there was a lot of IoT related, getting IoT data and using that was actually more interesting than the whole, we have the data in database because it's a private data, and with GenAI you're going to get rich and I'm going to get rich. Right. No, so all IoT. So maybe you can comment more than I on that, Rob. But it was actually quite interesting.
Yeah, I mean, I think the point of once a year putting Larry out there, and we don't know how much longer he's going to be able to keep doing this because he's 82, 81.
200 more years.
And he was, I think the point of it is, hey, here's our leader, and he's going to pontificate on some high level concepts. And so he kind of talked at high level about AI. He told, there's a lot of us who already know everything he's talking about. There's many, many more people who have never heard that in their life. And so it probably seemed insightful to them.
Yeah.
And then, you're right. He talked about, because the only real announcement at the whole event, if I had to really break it down, was we got a new database.
What? Which one's that?
Number 26. Database 26 AI. And he talked about how we're gonna. He had
autonomous. Is this like beyond? How is it different from autonomous database?
Well, it's at the core of autonomous. Autonomous is kind of a higher level construct that makes sure it can do everything without people. But the core of the database itself is just, hey, it's 26. And what he was getting at was, hey, most of the world's data is in Oracle databases, and all these businesses use it. They know SQL. They're not going to rip out all their tables, but they want to do this AI stuff. And they're just kind of talking about how you can do a combination. how it could ingest data, vectorize it in integrated vector databases like we use to do AI, because that's what all those things use under the hood. And it was kind of like almost like, can you do joins across your relational tables of your business and the vectorized stuff and blend it and shit like that. The very first slide I saw, obviously we had the analyst day, the very first day where we learned everything that they were ultimately going to talk about at the keynote. And they had a simple slide that I understand and I kind of talk about a lot. It was like, you've got your private data in this database and here's a pre-trained LLM and we're going to put it together and, you're going to get your private AI for your company. I talk about that all the time, having the enterprise brain. And so I was like, yeah, the simple concept makes a lot of sense. People want to know at a high level, how do I use my corporate data and train an LLM to get all that cool value that I'm seeing in ChatGPT and Claude, but I want my own private thing inside my company with my private data that's not been exposed to OpenAI or something like that. And so I think they're just trying to simplify that. I have thought in my mind, how do I build that myself? Because I talk about it a lot and I conceptualize how I would do that for a customer if I was doing a startup or a consulting thing. And in my mind, I'm like, okay, I'd probably just grab Postgres, and Postgres has PG Vector because Postgres has all those plugins.
Yeah.
I would cobble something together probably with that, and then I'd use my latest IoT Thunderstruck HP3 telemetry ingestion engine to pour stuff in there, and then you want to train, fine tune, and rag out your model there. Corporate data, something like that. And so I feel like they're just trying to do the same thing that I would cobble together and just have it built into a database, and so they can sell more databases. The other thing he talked about. Well, he did say one thing that's really obvious. A lot of companies and a lot of wealthy individuals are pouring all the money they have into this infrastructure that's being built right now. As you can imagine, they showed lots of videos, with Clay walking around with a hard hat on in Abilene, Texas at Stargate. And it's remarkable how fast they've been building that thing. It's insane. Sure. And you've seen how fast Elon has built, what is his, Colossus or whatever he calls it. Yeah. And so Microsoft grabbed the dormant Foxconn fab that was in Wisconsin that didn't get live. And so Microsoft's going to use that. So people are racing and they're spending just billions. I think trillions are going to get spent on this stuff. In this race to AGI or super intelligence or something. And I don't know if you get a prize at the end or if someone's going to get a trophy.
No, I mean, the talk is that increasingly now is that it's kind of like a dead end. It's basically going in the wrong direction. Here's what I observed at OCP. Whatever is being built out today is based on assumptions about AI. Okay, that AI thesis, that FOMO thesis 2 years ago. And when you look at here's the scary thing, this is the thing that should make all these guys shit their pants. Not only are the systems, the core systems like MVL 72 Blackwell, and then eventually the 144 with Vera Rubin, are those architecturally changing? The cooling systems, the DU or the distribution units, the power distribution architectures, all this stuff. And then the data center itself, all of it is changing. So and a lot of it is not going to be backward compatible, which is because everything is moving so fast. Everyone's making an architectural and investment bet at one point in time, and if they can't capture a return with that investment, the obsolescence curve on this thing is highly aggressive. In 2 years, that investment, if they don't recoup, they're going to be in big trouble. And so all these new systems are going to be so different. The cooling architecture, everything is going to be so different. You're going to have to go and retrofit and rebuild almost everything if you want to upgrade, right? So one of the things they're trying to do at OCP is standardize like all and the entire system so it's interoperable and sort of you can kind of do a plug and play switch out, hot switch out, swaps and all that stuff of all the components. And that standard is not necessarily there yet, right? So if you go to hot chips, you hear about all these different rack designs, but then there are nuances in how they're different for every one of the hyperscalers. And so each of the hyperscalers also is pursuing their own architecture. So from cooling to, like, if you look at Google, their whole system looks different. Then now you have like AMD introducing Helios, which is it's like a friggin' beast, dude. It's like 2 racks wide. Then you have NVIDIA introducing, CPX. And so that's a dual rack configuration for inference stuff. Dude, it's going to be a friggin' mess. You know what I'm saying? And OCP is funny because they're only starting to get into that conversation about how do we unify things. And these guys aren't even thinking about yet, what is the impact of doing this mass investment up front and then being able to modernize these infrastructures that become obsolete very quickly.
Yeah, but and I don't even look at the details on that, but I mean, if the software abstraction is done well enough, you can always keep on using the old stuff. It will be just slower, so we're just making faster stuff. How much is the tie-in between the software stack and the cooling is basically the question. Is it that problem? So I don't know, but
I don't know. I mean, that's what I hear everyone say, and that's a convenient answer, and then it never turns out that way.
I just want to host a WordPress website.
What?
I just want to host a WordPress website that talks to MySQL. Can I do that? Do I need a black box?
Yeah.
Well, WordPress is a gigantic mess. Just get Claude to write a Flask application. It's much more easy to maintain.
It's also more than 25% of the entire internet now.
Yeah, but that doesn't mean it's good, my friend.
No, it doesn't mean it's good. But as we have all learned, as I always remind you, the flashbacks as Sun Microsystems was collapsing into the sea, and Larry and Scott McNealy is on stage, and what did he say about the .com thing? Sometimes good enough is good enough.
Yeah.
And what he meant is after a while, people figured out they didn't have to spend millions on E10K servers. They could just buy a cheap Linux box, and it was good enough. And PHP was good enough, and MySQL was also good enough. It wasn't great, wasn't brilliant, but it was good enough.
Because the real reason it's good enough. The real reason that it makes good enough money. That's the only reason.
You're right. Yeah, we can't forget that it's all about money. It's always about money and margin.
But that I think that this might become a problem because. And a very interesting society problem, because if the theory we're carrying it here, which is this whole AI thing is a gigantic bubble for businesses and is going to burst at some point, the problem is, I believe, the technology is getting more and more adopted by individuals. So the people who are used to use ChatGPT in their everyday life for free because it's funded by investor, if at some point this whole things collapse and investors say, no, it's off. Imagine that somebody would show up today and say, you know what? The iPhones, not good for the environment. We're not going to do them anymore. We're going to stop them. People are going to revolt.
No, but I think people are gonna, they're gonna revolt and they're gonna sue the hell out of a couple of companies, and that's gonna be it. But I think some people will pay. There's probably going to be a much more urgent modality of monetizing, which is going to be the subscription. Everyone keeps talking about, we're going to charge you by like, some sort of mechanism similar to a contract rate. If we do X number of jobs for you or complete X number of, let's say, CSR calls, then you pay us, a per task rate.
This never works. We tried that in the past.
Yeah. So they're gonna desperately just try to sell subscriptions, right?
We're going to see ads.
And they're going to lose a shit ton of money. Yeah. And then they're going to try to figure out how to inject ads. And then.
Yeah, this is why I say to people, enjoy GenAI nowadays, because to me, it's, and I'm not the only one to say that, but GenAI today is the same way the internet was in the mid-90s.
Yeah.
Open space where you could go anywhere. And actually, it's already going down because there's so much pre-prompting that censor the models, but it's already going down. But at least from a usage standpoint, you can go to ChatGPT, ask something, and you're not bombarded by monetization bullshit. But yes, it is coming. If it comes through subscription, then that's great because I can just pay a subscription and not be bothered by anything. But I'm not sure the mass is there given the size of investment. Yeah. If it's all subsidized by individual subscription, I mean, hey, we have 5 billion people using it on the planet, $20 each. That's what, 100 billion per month. Is that enough to fund all the trillions we're going to put in infrastructure? Maybe, I don't know.
Maybe somebody's going to find a way to make this more efficient instead of just throwing more hardware and more electricity at it.
By the way, I think back to Oracle, I was thinking of that on the side with my friend ChatGPT. Oracle missed an opportunity. They should have renamed the database Oracle, Aurcale. Oracle. This is Oracle. Great. People from Oracle, if you're listening to me, just send me a check for the idea.
But you know what? Because when people think about who has the ultimate wisdom, like AI or whatever, you're right. Or you could have a picture. Remember in the Matrix, Neo has to go talk to the Oracle.
Exactly.
I know. That's so.
And what does Oracle say to Neo? She said, "You're not ready yet. You're waiting."
Yeah, but Rob, to Leonard points, he ended up with the architect.
He did end up with the architect.
Yeah, you're not Neo, dude.
That's a great food for thought.
You're the architect.
And the first version of the Matrix was perfect and sublime and utopia, and humans couldn't accept the program because humans don't know about perfection. They need suffering.
This I totally agree with. This is why we invented religions. Sorry.
That is weird. Yeah, we do need suffering. It's in order for all the good stuff to actually be meaningful.
That was such a great scene in the second Matrix movie when he has the discussion with the architect, because you're right. The architect was kind of dropping some broader societal wisdom in his speech to Neo there. That humans, it was unbelievable to them. A perfect world, everything's great and happy, and people, their brains were like, no, does not compute. We don't know how to operate in that world.
Yeah. But that is weird. That is how AGI was sold. It's utopia.
Yeah,
it's exact. I mean, it's like art. Life imitates art. It's like really creepy. But you're right. That's exactly how it's been sold. It's morphing now, and now it's all about like what, sex bots and friggin' commerce. And they're gonna, it's funny watching CNBC. You see these guys come on and trying to make it look like if. This is revolutionary because now like Walmart's doing something with ChatGPT is like, and it's going to be so beneficial for Walmart because people are going to buy twice as much toilet paper because they need twice as much toilet paper to wipe their ass, right? It's like, what? How does that make any friggin' sense? What are you talking about? And so the same e-commerce BS that we had before is going to be regurgitated and reformed into this BS AI commerce narrative.
You mean pets? You mean pets.com did not work?
And people forget Amazon was tax subsidized. It was at a state level subsidized. And to the detriment of all the retailers, right? For years.
For the longest time, you're right. E-commerce, if it was another state, you'd have to pay tax. You're right.
Yeah.
And for how many years did he lost money?
Who?
People forgot.
Forever. Amazon. Yeah. And then people gave him a pass. People gave Bezos a pass, and they didn't provide a dividend. He sold this really wonderful narrative about cash flow, which he was generating a lot of, but a lot of that was attributed to he was not accountable for any profit, right? For years.
I mean, Amazon was not profitable till like 2010,
like 5 or 6 years ago. Yeah,
it was never. But you're right. They played a game. They're like, I'm reinvesting it in the company,
and they won.
And then they won.
They fooled Wall Street into giving them free money.
Cash flow can.
It was beautiful. I mean, but don't give them credit that they don't deserve, right? Which is, oh, they were so innovative and blah. No, they fooled Wall Street. Jim Cramer got up there, was telling everyone every day, Amazon's the Death Star of retail, while Amazon is like what 2% of global. I mean, it was a small number of global retail. They're still small. And yeah, they had got all kinds of like nonsense that was basically giving them tailwind, and they were subsidized. So,
yeah, but in the end, the people don't look at the big picture. It's always the same thing. Amazon just about efficiency. From an efficiency standpoint, as a consumer, it is more efficient. So long term, it wins. For certain.
No, then they created something that they didn't expect, which was AWS.
No, but beyond, yeah, but that's something else. That's a smart way to.
That's exactly. Me. That's me with the architect.
and full disclosure, I am the architect.
Oh my God!
But luckily, I only sucked all the energy from a small town for like about 10 minutes in creating this video. So hopefully everybody was okay.
You didn't have a brownout.
The version I designed.
Oh, Jesus.
It was sublime. It failed miserably because the humans we plugged in wouldn't accept the program. Humans only know suffering. The architect.
Oh my God. Are you paying for that or is that free?
It's free. It's Sora too.
Sora.
Yeah. Yeah, I pay $20 a month for Claude because it's the best. It's the best at writing code. Yeah. But
going back
and
to
all
that,
the other cool code generators that people are using are all using Anthropic on the back end.
Yeah, but going back to like the databases. I mean, we talked about this like years ago. Remember that episode where we were talking about object-oriented databases, vector databases, and stuff like that? The blob. That's not the first time we brought up blob, but it is interesting. That people were thinking about that back then, and the whole idea with object-oriented is that you had object-oriented programming, and so there was it would disintermediate, the meaning of those two worlds would disintermediate the need for the relational database, right? Because you have objects talking to object, and a programmatic object layer. And it is weird that 30 years later, all that stuff is becoming relevant. Your point about how do you make relational databases more work better with LLMs and deal with all this stuff that's already this huge install base of relational databases out there. Yeah, that maybe not thinking about LLM as like the whole solution, but using it as sort of this translation layer. Do you know what I'm saying? Like an interface between the blob and the large language model, because it can code well, right? And so you can train it to understand and translate intent into, let's say, SQL, hopefully more reliably in the near future. But, there's probably something workable there, right? But it's not about putting the LLM first. It's really looking at, okay, if we're to merge, the world of LLMs with all the relational and transactional systems out there and data, what would be a good architecture and application of large language models to make that happen, right? Because that's right now, that is one of the hugest problems.
Yeah, that's the challenge, and I'm not sure there's an easy solution to that, because you
no, there isn't.
you're dealing with the semantic aspect and with also the fact that most of those schemas were created by human and not purely and not well maintained, which is the second point I was making about this whole thing. Is because Rob and I discussed before you joined. I lived in metadata for many years, and if you look at most applications, the metadata layer is very poor from a standpoint.
So data is poor. Most of it.
But that's easy to spot. This is easy to spot. Poor metadata.
Yeah.
And easy to resolve. You can clean data. ELT have been cleaning data for decades with some level of effectiveness. Cleaning metadata, good luck. Because it's constant.
And then in regards to like enterprise AI, right? So I was on a call about that just recently.
We're going to build it.
We see C3.ai has been doing that for years.
We're going to build.
Not very well, but
we're going to build it. We're going to build this enterprise AI thing.
Yeah. It's the biggest nut to crack.
It's already done. Ton Siebel's done it. Not very well, but it's
going to be open. It's going to be open source. We're going to give it to the people.
Yeah. Open source.
Giving it to the people.
People make this thing work.
Exactly. Yes.
We're getting better at this. I can't believe I'm like Korean and I can't friggin'
open source the second biggest lure of the
see, I'm Korean. This should just like happen naturally. Like, it's ridiculous.
I know.
Alhamdulillah.
Oh my gosh. All right.
My wife's Korean, so
yeah.
Oh, your wife's Korean? Oh wow, I didn't know that.
Originally, she grew up in France, but originally, yeah. And so I've been to Korea many times. So, yeah. Some Korean culture in our home.
Yeah. The funny thing about that K-pop Demon Hunter thing, the people behind the voices are becoming more popular than the movie. The singers. It's crazy.
Yeah. Well, actually, that's an AI opportunity because the whole K-pop thing is totally manufactured in Korea. You know that all those bands are totally manufactured from the very beginning. So maybe there's an AI PA here we can do.
No. Actually, I think it's completely the reverse because, the singer that does the main voice, singing voice, actually all three singers, they appeared on what's his name? Jimmy
Fallon. Jimmy Kimmel, Jimmy Fallon.
Yeah, and everybody was like, the thing is everybody wanted them to prove that they weren't AI.
Yeah, good point.
Which is weird, right? You can't assign celebrity to an AI.
That's apparently the point. Think out of the box, return the thing. What if we make being AI as a singer cool? That's the opportunity.
No, you can't. Because nobody gives a crap about an AI hitting a A5 note, because it's like what we appreciate is the human achievement, not the AI's simulation or synthesis of achievement.
Well, we should mark those words and revisit them on a regular basis.
Yeah, Leonard, the only A5 thing that I care about is A5 Wagyu beef.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Oh my gosh.
For some reason I thought you were going to say steak sauce, but close enough.
That was A1.
I know.
Oh my God. That's the most horrifying thing when you're at a high-end steakhouse and you look across the room and someone asks for A1 steak sauce and the person brings it out and you're just like, oh my God, you should just go to the Sizzler instead.
Yeah, exactly.
What are you doing here? Get out of here. Oh, don't get me started. It's like when we started showing up to high-end steakhouses not wearing a suit. Oh my God. I see guys wearing tracked shorts and
I took a customer to a high-end restaurant once and he showed up in sandals and shorts and he ordered this very sophisticated shrimp dish and he asked for the cocktail sauce.
I mean, but what's crazy is that's the vision of Idiocracy. When you watch Idiocracy, everyone's like dressed like crap. What is it? President Camacho has like a gigantic medallion.
I need to watch it again.
Oh my God, so good.
Oh my God, yeah.
Thanks for giving me. That's a good tip for the weekend. I need to watch this movie again.
I love that movie.
Oh my God.
I have to watch it probably once a month just to stay in tune with what reality is.
With reality.
and you have to read The Prince from Machiavelli every year.
Oh.
Never. If you guys have never read The Prince for Machiavelli,
No.
do it this way. I mean, it's a small book. It's super easy.
I'm surprised. I'm surprised you haven't read it, man. Rob, you read everything.
Okay, but I haven't read this one, so let me go bring up the Kindle machine.
Yeah. We should do a Prince episode someday. It's
All right. So it's a short one. I can read it pretty fast. All right.
Yeah. 600 years ago, and it's still almost 600 years ago, I think, and it's almost one of the best business books, by the way, in terms of conquering and sustaining power.
Wow.
Well, looking forward to hanging out with you next week, dude.
Oh, I know. We're going to be at Lenovo, man. I'm going to be getting all these cool ThinkPads, with OLED screens and stuff like that, just like you do,
Yeah.
Wouldn't think that in the same sentence. So,
In like this.
Look at
I think I have one or two.
Actually, I really like this, man. I think they did a really great job.
Is that the Snapdragon one?
No. This is the Aura edition.
Aura.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it's really, you'll like it.
This is a vintage one. It's probably running Windows 2.
Yeah, I think like the new fashion is, like for enterprise, it's having a little bit of heft, instead of going like.
I'm talking to you now on a laptop that I feel like I'm now learning has way too much heft. It's a 16-inch MacBook Pro M4.
Yeah.
And it's super powerful, but it also weighs 1,000 pounds.
Yeah.
And it is too heavy. I was like, I don't know.
Dude, it's overkill. You know what I use? I just use a MacBook Air 15-inch, and it kills, man. And it's it's an M2, and it still kills.
Well,
but
I have an M1. It's still. It depends what you do with it, obviously.
Yeah. Oh no, they're amazing.
I never bought into the 16 inches one. They're too bulky. It's
this thing. Yeah, it is too bulky. It's very thick, very, very heavy.
15-inch Air. It's just like the iPad. I didn't get the Pro. I just got the the Air. And you know what? It's way more than enough. And I do video editing on it too. So
if you don't do video editing, if you just do geeky, fun Linux stuff, I have a bunch of old MacBook Air 11-inch running Ubuntu.
Ooh.
It's magic. I use those old ones to run stuff in the house, like almost. They're great. And they still run. They don't run the latest Mac OS with all the freaking multi-factor whatever bullshit. But on Ubuntu, they are dream machines.
As soon as you put Linux on an old machine, you realize that there's something wrong in the matrix, because Windows and Mac OS were running like crap. But you put Linux and it runs like a bat out of hell, and you're like, oh, you know what?
Mac OS is not too bad, but
we've been saying, the Linux people have been saying, oh, we're going to get the whole world running Linux on the desktop, and it's never really happened. Even though quietly it took over the mobile space, and it may come, in Chromebooks, and now they're going to bring Android to the desktop, but along the way, and there was always a struggle, and it never really succeeded, but. There's enough people now, and it's about something else. There are Microsoft and I guess Apple to some extent. They're starting to embed AI into the operating system, and like Copilot on the newest update to Windows 11, the second half of 25 update. It's starting to do too much, and they're starting to embed things into the OS that are just fly in the face of privacy.
Yeah.
We've been saying that on day one. If you remember when we start talking about AI in the OS, I was the one saying no F way.
Right.
This is terribly awful.
Yeah.
But you know what?
Linux might be the only way to break free of a surveillance laptop.
Yeah, I'm hoping Apple will lean into that. Protecting privacy instead of like going to the dark side. But you know what? Hey, dude, they announced a new what do you call it? A5 or M5.
Yes, M5.
Oh my God, dude, that thing. So they took what was in the A19 Pro, the neural accelerators. They ported it over that thing. I bet you $1 million is an immense beast, because what those things do, they actually convert, or at least they provide tensor cores for matrix multiplication, which GPUs don't intrinsically do. So what I'd love to see is what Apple's doing on the server side, man, because people keep saying, oh, they're behind, they don't do shit, and AI, blah blah blah. I'm thinking, how do you even know? The one thing is they manufacture their servers right out of Texas. What part of server out of Texas did you not understand? So these guys have to be doing something that, obviously they're not going to sell the stuff, but, they have this AMX extension that they incorporated into the M series early on. And I think they're just extending it and just embedding it into the GPUs, so that now the GPUs are more like what NVIDIA's GPUs do.
Yeah.
So are you telling me that GPUs don't do matrix math natively by default?
Not natively. The software.
So what they do?
The software create at a kernel level enables them to do math operations. Right. It's the kernel. So but these neural accelerators are geared toward that. They're optimized for math, and so you're going to have a separate kernel for that, and that's why I think you're seeing dramatically improved AI performance on the generation, and on the iPhone 17 Pro. It does some crazy stuff. I'm pretty actually impressed with the 17 Pro.
Yeah, me too. It's pretty amazing.
Yeah, performs really well.
I didn't.
And the photos are freaking ridiculous.
Has your orange phone started turning pink yet?
No, why?
I saw that on the internet. People are showing pictures of it's starting to discolor and stuff like that.
Really?
And you don't think it's AI, Rob? And you don't think it's AI? Oh, come on.
Yeah. It's on the internet, so it must be true.
It's on the internet. And so the internet told me that the orange phone's going to start to turn pink. And they also told me, which may be true, that if you happen to kind of ding it or hit it against something, it's because now it's aluminum, you realize it's not really orange all the way through. You see silver, metal, aluminum underneath. Like if you chip part of your phone, like you hit it, you'll see it'll show silver exposed beneath the orange. So
yeah, I do have a recommendation for those people.
Because
stop dropping your phones.
Are you saying, Rob, that people were thinking that there is this thing called orange aluminium that we can mine?
They thought that there was, but I saw these videos on the internet. Let me see what website it was. I was on Samsung.com, and they showed me all the videos, the bad things happening to the iPhone.
So ridiculous. Yeah, I've seen some people drop it from incredible heights and it kind of surviving.
I have a question. Has anyone seen the iPhone Air in the wild yet?
No.
Well, I mean, we're really having first world problems.
I want to see a shootout, the iPhone Air versus the Samsung Galaxy Edge. Remember, because last spring they came out with their thin.
Oh yeah.
And it was like, hey, we're first. Samsung's always beating Apple in everything, but it doesn't make any difference. Well, I mean, you know what I mean? Like Apple shows up like 3 years later with the technology and they go, oh, we invented it. It's like, whatever.
Apple is a lifestyle.
It's a lifestyle. You're right. It's a lifestyle thing. Absolutely. So I can say I feel bad for Samsung or Android, but Samsung is still the number one smartphone manufacturer in the world. So I guess.
And I would actually argue that Samsung is probably the closest to Apple than the other.
Yeah, you're right.
I think they really understand the concept of becoming.
Maybe I'll go do a review. Maybe I'll go to Best Buy. I've yet to see or play with the Galaxy Edge thin device. Maybe I'll go somewhere I can hold the Edge and the Air.
Yeah. No, I think the Edge. I think they did a better job with the Edge. It's slightly thicker.
Yeah,
But-
just slightly. But it's got the
I mean-
it's got the 200 megapixel camera. Like they did a better job with the camera with the Edge.
Yeah.
Because they gave you 2 cameras and actual optical and zoom.
Yeah, but the Apple Fusion cameras are pretty damn good, man. But you have to have more than one.
Yeah.
You can't just have one. A lot of people, the what do you call it? The wide angle, they missed the wide angle or telephoto. I don't know which one.
Oh, right angle. You're right.
Yeah.
That's a good
Yeah.
point.
One of
You know what?
The-
I wonder if we should stop this show.
Yeah, we should because this is
Yeah, it's late, guys.
way too friggin' long. Oh my god. All right. Okay.
But we're so entertaining that people are still with us.
We're entertaining ourselves. That's why.
Exactly. Exactly.
Hey,
It's just two.
compliment yourself. At least one person is happy.
Exactly. I just want to thank everybody for joining us on this edition of Relational Database Love.
Love.
Yeah. Where you got to hear the leaders, the ancestors, the godfathers of relational databases were here. We invented data types, columns, row level locking versus page level locking, foreign
Indexes.
secondary indexes, triggers, stored procedures. We remember when Oracle put in Java stored procedures because they thought Java was a big deal. And then Microsoft put in C# stored procedures
Oh my god.
because Oracle put in Java stored procedures.
Crime against humanity.
It's the crimes against
Wow.
humanity. I remember in the 90s, most people, when they were building their client server apps, if they wanted the best performance, they actually put all the business logic and stored procedures instead of putting it in a middle tier or in a client app because you got better performance. Stored
Oh my
procedures,
God.
You're
You're giving me nightmares.
it executed faster. So remember,
Server, baby.
don't-
Server.
I know Dimitri's not a fan of stored procedures or triggers, but hey, I used to be Mr. Merge Replication, okay, at Microsoft. They flew me to France to save the TGV because the triggers were eating up too much CPU and I had to show them how to tune it and everything like that because replication used triggers and stored procs to keep everything, So anyway, so much about that information you don't care about. IoT. Join us next week where we promise to talk about something really relevant and maybe a little bit younger than Larry Ellison. You never know. Arrivederci.